Welcome to the Academic Writing Amplified podcast. On this podcast, we believe that the culture of academia needs to change radically. Women and non-binary people are revolutionizing academia within institutions that were not built for us. If you're ready to reject the culture of overwork, kick guilt and overwhelm to the curb, and amplify your voice to make a real impact on your field without breaking down or burning out, you're in the right place. With our team of experienced writing coaches as co-hosts, we'll share insights and talk to inspiring guests to bring you the practical strategies, systems, and mindset shifts you need to find time to write, publish work you love, and design your career on your terms. And it all starts with writing. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Mazak, and I've got a great podcast in store for you today. But before we get to that, I just want to do at least a little tiny bit of reflection over the year 2022, which is coming to an end. And in fact, this is our last new release podcast episode of 2022, our last episode that will drop before our company and all of the people who work here with us are going to take a beautiful, we call it our Three Kings Day break because so many of us are in Puerto Rico and Three Kings Day is just the most important day. So we take a nice long hiatus from our work and also from this podcast. So you can expect our next episode to drop on January 10th. Tuesday, January 10th, we will be back in your earbuds or blasting through your car after you are on your way to work or wherever you usually listen to us, maybe on your walk. That would be so great. And I'm just going to tease a little bit that this episode is going to be one that you are not going to want to miss. In January, our first podcast episode is going to make a really big announcement. And, I don't want to leave you hanging too long. So what I will say is that our announcement is going to be the new name of our company. So I'll leave you thinking over the semester break about what that might be. But I can't wait to tell you all about the changes that have been going on here behind the scenes in 2022 that are going to become very much in front of the scenes in 2023. Now, I just got back from a slightly impromptu trip to the University of South Carolina, where I participated in their business expo. The University of South Carolina is looking to work with more women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and small businesses. And so they invited a bunch of businesses to come and meet decision makers and leaders in their departments and different units of the university. Of course, University of South Carolina is a really beautiful campus. I enjoyed getting a little taste of fall/winter when I went up there. It's so different from Puerto Rico because actually they were having a cold spell up there. It was a little different for them too, and just had such a wonderful time. And one of the things that was very obvious to me as I talked to people from all kinds of different departments, from engineering, from actually schools, right? From engineering, arts and sciences, business school, so many different schools. One of the really key themes that kept coming up was that there is not support for mid-career faculty. So there's a lot of money out there in grants. There's a lot of programs out there that are for early career faculty and pre-tenure faculty in the tenure system or in the US Canada tenure system. But there's just not that much once you get to mid-career. It's like, hey, you should know what you're doing by now. So I think that's a real problem. And I'll tell you why. Because we are still not seeing enough women and non-binary professors get to full professor. So we can't abandon the quest for helping professors make it all the way through the pipeline after the first promotion. Like we can't just say, oh, you're an associate professor. Again, our North American language. You can translate it into the language that makes sense for your institution. But for the North American kind of tenure system, you get to associate and then you're on your own. And that is not good enough. That is not good enough. I had the great chance to meet with two of our clients one who had taken our Elevate program, one who had taken our Amplify, was right now in our Amplify program. Both are in the School of Public Health at University of South Carolina. And that was another thing that came up during our dinner together was there's all this attention about getting, and many times there's attention to get women through this pipeline past, get them tenured. And yay. And also we need to get all the way to full. Full is where the full professor is where a very large pay raise is for many institutions, not all, but there's definitely a very real difference in pay scale between associate and full. Absolutely a difference in prestige. Absolutely a difference into how you are treated at your university, for better or for worse. But we can't have fields that are dominated by women at the PhD and pre-tenure level, at the early career level, and then dominated by men at the full level. So not acceptable. And that's why we created our Elevate program. So today on the podcast, we are re-releasing a short episode that I did called Lead for Legacy. Lead for Legacy is one of the 6 areas that we cover in our Elevate program. And so you will hear me talk about this in today's episode. But I wanted to preface with a little kind of update and some thoughtful reflections for 2022 as we head into 2023. If you are mid-career, or even if you've just turned in your dossier for tenure and you're going to soon imminently be mid-career, I would really love for you to consider our Elevate program. Now, when this episode drops, there's not going to be that much time left to enroll. So if you haven't applied, if you haven't gotten the information you need in order to decide whether you want to apply and do it, the time is absolutely now. We start at the January New Year's Writing Retreat, which is at the end of January. So basically, your time is running out. And we really want to help you. And the way that we can help you is if you are in conversation with us. So if you are mid-career, if you agree with me that the gap, the drop off in the pipeline from, through the ranks of professorship, if you agree with me that this cannot happen to more women and non-binary professors, that we need you all to get all the way to full, that we need you all to get the big grants that you want to get, to write your books, to, lead your research centers, to do the big things you want to do in the world. Maybe you want to make a pivot in your career. Maybe you want to get a job post-tenure. We've definitely helped many Elevate members get a new job post-tenure, which a lot of people think you can't do, but you absolutely can, with better pay, better benefits, and a better fit, values fit between you and your institution. Any next level thing that you want to do. And maybe it's not even getting full. I just want you to be supported enough that if you want to go for full, you can get full. Actually, what we're going to do in Elevate is we help you decide what that next level looks like for you. You might have a clear idea in your mind right now, right? You might be like, what I really want to do is this, and I'm going to join Elevate to help me do it. But you might just feel like, I'm not sure what the next level is, but I know there is one. And we take you through a process in Elevate of figuring out what that next level is, breaking it down, really asking deeply to yourself, how is it that I am going to make this career deeply impactful, meaningful, and important for me? Because you just can't keep doing your career for other people. And you just can't keep getting by. It's especially mid-career. If you feel like I'm just making this work because I don't know what else I'm going to do, if I, I don't know what other career I might have, or I don't know how else to be in this career, but you don't feel good. Maybe you've experienced a burnout. Maybe you're in burnout right now. Elevate is the program for you. So please find the show notes. Please apply for Elevate. Even if, even if you don't want to apply, if you're not sure if it's for you, send us an email to support@kathymazak.com and just get in conversation with us. If you apply, we do send you a link so that you can get on my calendar and personally talk to me about whether Elevate is a good fit for you or not. And so we would just love to get into that conversation with you. So as you move from 2022 into 2023, I invite you to rest. I invite you to reflect, to appreciate everything that you've accomplished in 2022, and to be okay with asking for more in 2023. And we would love to support you in that through our Elevate Mid-Career program. All right, so on with the episode. Have a wonderful new year. And I just can't wait to juicily announce our new company name and some other really amazing new changes you're going to see to the podcast, to our programs, to it all in January next year. So have a great break, and you'll hear me. You'll hear me after the new year. Hello there. On today's podcast, I'm sharing with you an episode from a private podcast feed that I created in October 2021 called 7 Steps to a Legacy Building Career. Now, I publicized this private podcast feed exclusively to people on my email list. So if that wasn't you, maybe you didn't hear about it. And I wanted to share one of my favorite episodes from that mini private podcast feed. It's called Leading for Legacy. Now, if you want to get all the episodes, you can subscribe to this private podcast by going to the link in the show notes. Click on the link. It will open in your favorite podcast. You'll be able to open it in your favorite podcast player and listen to all 7 episodes. Now, I want to remind you, first of all, we are coming up on a holiday break for our company. So we're going to take a little bit of a podcast hiatus during the holidays, and we'll be back in the new year, 2022. Meanwhile, though, I would love for you to download the 7 Steps to a Legacy Building Career podcast feed. So, you can keep me in your earbuds all through the holiday break. Also, I want to let you know that our Elevate program is still open for enrollment, but you need to act fast because we are going on our holiday break. So you need to get your application in and your deposit to hold your spot to us as soon as possible. This podcast is going to drop on the week we're closing enrollment for Elevate. So have a listen to this podcast. If you like what you hear today, go and check out the private podcast feed that I have linked up in the show notes, or just go directly to our Elevate info session for more. You can find the link for that in the show notes as well. And you can listen to our info session, apply for Elevate. I'm sitting on my inbox waiting for your application. I'm sure that as long as it, meets our community criteria, that we will approve it and you can save your spot. There's only a few spots left and enrollment is closing. If you're mid-career, if you're post-tenure and you want to participate in our 2022 cohort of Elevate, the only one that we are enrolling in 2022, then we need to get your application soon. All right. I hope you enjoy this episode, Leading for Legacy. Today, we are talking about step 6 which is Leading for Legacy. Now, post-tenure, you are holding up a lot of people, okay? And what I mean by this is that you have family and friends depending on you. You have graduate students depending on you. You have junior faculty depending on you, research colleagues, co-authors. The longer you live in academia, the more people you have connected to you and looking to you for leadership. Now, we talked in a previous episode about how that network of people around you, we really want to be thinking about them as a team that is supporting you. But in Leading for Legacy, we're going to take a little bit of a different tack on that group of people that you are pouring into and who are helping you create your legacy, but who are also like enacting your legacy in the world, right? Your students are doing that. Potentially, your junior colleagues are doing that, co-authors and things. They are helping you to build out that research or teaching or service legacy that you are building for yourself. And that can feel really heavy. It can feel heavy. It can feel hard. So it's really appropriate, I think, in mid-career to really think about leadership and how closely it's related to mentoring. So I want to talk a little bit, and I think I've talked on the main podcast about what I mean by leadership. Leadership doesn't mean administration. Leadership means exactly what we've just been talking about. You have a lot of people depending on you who really look to you for, what to do next, for guidance, for kind of knowledge breakthroughs, right? If you think about your students, like you are helping them to make the kind of new knowledge that you've been making throughout your career. And so it's a lot, right? It's a lot to lead in that way. And most of the people who come through our Elevate program are that kind of person. I mean, really, like if you downloaded a podcast or subscribed to a private podcast that's called 7 Steps to a Legacy Building Career, you're one of those people. So I want you to think, though, about the kinds of decisions you need to make in order to lead for legacy. What you're really doing when you are leading is helping other people, right? And that kind of helping other people, which involves a lot of you pouring into them, it involves your time, it involves your energy. You need to be pouring into yourself in order to continue to do that effectively. So I think a lot of people who get post-tenure or mid-career feel like, well, I've made it to this level in my career, and so I have a kind of obligation to give back to other people. And I think like that there's nothing wrong with that at all, right? I think that's true. However, you cannot give back to other people. You cannot be the leader that those other people need you to be if you're depleted, if you're exhausted, if you are not also really pouring into yourself. And I imagine that if you're listening to this podcast, you listen to my main podcast as well. And I would refer you to the amazing episode with Despina, who talks about how she really thought when she enrolled in Elevate that she was going to be like, let's learn more productivity. I'm already super great. Let me learn how to do this even better and get even more done. And what she actually learned was how to kind of nurture herself so that she can rest. And by doing that, she's had the effect that she wanted to have. She's become a better wife, a better mother, a better advisor, a better colleague. She's gotten better at all of those things, but not for the reason that she thought she was going to. She thought she was going to learn how to do more and that would make her a better leader. But actually, she learned how to fill herself up, how to do less so that the things you do are more effective. And that is the message of leading for legacy. When you want to, lead for change, right? Which I think, again, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably like not super happy with like the status quo in academia. and you see the argument for why it is patriarchal and racist and ableist, and you know that it exists in a world with social structures, and you are not happy about it. It's true, but you're not that keen on it. And so I think all of us don't want to replicate those structures of oppression inside of academia. In some sense, we are going to do it anyway, but with a little bit of consciousness about it, I think we can do so much better. And again, that is leadership, right? You're leading people to something new, to a new way of doing things, to new processes and systems, to new beliefs, to new cultural practices. And you do that by embodying a different way of success in academia. And so if the success that you've seen in academia has come from people who never take a vacation, who are at the lab until, midnight every night, who are basically working all the time, if that is what success has looked like to you, because that's the model that you had, I just want to offer you the idea that it doesn't have to be that way, and that you can be very, very effective. I would even say more effective if you pour into yourself and don't rely on just more and more time working in order to do more work. You won't do as high quality work that way, and you won't do as much work that way, although I don't think that that's as important as the high quality part. So to wrap up the many ideas that I have laid out for you in this little mini podcast episode, post-tenure, you're holding up a lot of people. But if you can't fill yourself, you're not going to be able to fully support all those people that are around you. So what I want you to think about for step number 6 is, what are the things that you're doing to improve your, your professional life? How are you looking for support for yourself? Not support for your students or for your co-authors or for your research center, or support for more grants so that you can buy more equipment and run more experiments, or more grants so that you can go to the archives or travel and collect data over here, or anything like that. What are you doing for you? For you, the person in a body who is the scholar, who is the leader. You are precious. Your brain is expensive. That's what I keep saying. Your brain is expensive. It is taking a lot of time and money to get it to where it is. And that is something that deserves care. It deserves rest. It deserves restoration. And you deserve those things. You deserve to rest. You deserve restoration, because that kind of caring for yourself and your person, your brain and the body it's in, that's leadership. Without that, you can't have leadership. I'm sorry. If you are just running to burnout all the time, that's not effective leadership. And that's not going to lead you to a legacy, right? It's not going to lead you to the kind of mark that you want to make in the world. So think about, that's my question for you as we move into tomorrow, which is our last day of this mini private podcast. I want you to think, what are you doing for you? What do you need? What does support look like for you? All right. Before I leave, I just want to give you another chance to register for our Elevate info session. You might get some ideas about what you might need by coming to the info session and learning all about our 6-month coaching program for post-tenure and mid-career scholars. You'll get all the details about what others have learned and done in our program, and about how we run the program, why we founded it, and you get a chance, if you come live, to ask any questions that you might have. All right. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much for spending your valuable time supporting yourself and your writing by listening to this episode. If you like what you heard today, the best way to say thank you is to hop on over to Apple iTunes and write an honest review. The more reviews, the more amazing academic women and non-binary people will find this podcast. So go write one now.